This is episode 24, and today I want to talk about all things vocal registers. Welcome to Freya Singing Tips, the podcast. My name is Freya Casey, professional singer and vocal coach. I have been on stage my whole life, and I'm passionate about helping you discover the awesomeness in your own voice. Opera, musical theater, jazz, pop, folk, rock, I have done it all, and I want to give you golden nuggets of advice on how to be the master of your voice. Have you ever wondered what are the actual registers, how many are there, and what's the difference between falsetto and head voice? Well, I'm here today to lay down the grounds here of what this all is and how you do it. Now, let's first of all establish that the terminology will probably be different from teacher to teacher, from vocal coach to vocal coach. Sometimes people use different definitions for different things. There are some people who think there are up to 8 registers or 8 passaggi, which means you have all these transitions in your voice. Now, the main thing that I believe in is basically there are 2 different mechanisms in your voice. The first is the heavy mechanism, which will mean usually chest voice. And we will also talk about what extension of the chest voice there is. And the more light register, which is the head voice. Heavy and light does not refer to it sounding heavy or light. It's more, it describes how it is actually produced. Now, chest register is called that way just because whenever you put your hand on your chest and you speak, which is usually in chest voice, just like I'm speaking right now, your chest vibrates. You can totally feel that. Or you sing la 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 la. You can feel something in your chest vibrating. That is because whatever resonates whenever you produce those chest voice pitches, the resonating space takes place a lot in this throat and chest area, and that's why it's called chest voice. It sounds chesty. And it also has this more heavy mechanism just because the vocal cords touch on a bigger area. There's a big surface of the vocal cords that actually touches and that actually moves. And that way, since it's thicker, it sounds heavier. And it just sounds heavier. This sounds much more heavy than does head voice. So we're going to talk about head voice next. Head voice is called that way just because, obviously, your chest doesn't vibrate that much anymore, but your head spaces do. Now, all the bones and the cavities that are in your skull, which are quite a bit, they vibrate or they resonate with the sound that comes out of your vocal cords. Your vocal cords, they produce a frequency, and every little bone in your body actually has its own frequency. Everything has its own frequency in which it can vibrate. So whenever you sing in head voice, those parts of your head, that are in your head, they tend to vibrate with and resonate with the frequency that is being produced when you sing head voice. Also, it is called head voice just because it is the lighter register. Lighter not meaning that it necessarily has to sound lighter. If you've ever heard a female opera singer, they sound anything. But the lightness describes the vocal cords coming together. Now the area, since the vocal cords are much more stretched and they get thinner when they come together, that's why it's lighter. There's a smaller edge, a smaller surface that actually touches. And that's why it does sound lighter. The raw pitch sounds lighter. But then, of course, you can use the resonating space in a way that it doesn't sound light, that it sounds very full. So head voice is this. This is my head voice. I try to not go into overdrive here on the mic, but I'll have to kind of go far away now. And you'll go high. Now, it doesn't sound thin, but it does have this different quality. Now, these are the two main registers. Everything else kind of extends out of these. Let's talk about the falsetto. What is the falsetto? A lot of times the falsetto describes a male register, but a female can do falsetto just as a male can. Falsetto is a variation of the head voice, but it is a lot more breathy. It doesn't have such tight vocal cord closure as does head voice. A classical soprano would have pure head voice and nothing else around it whenever she sings high. But whenever you want to sing pop, especially some ballads, when you want to have those high pitches that are very light and breathy and emotional, you don't want to sound like too heady. You want to sound more like So this breathiness defines the falsetto. And like I said, females can do it just as well as males can. Let's talk about mixed register. Mixed register is actually, just like it says, you're not fully in your chest voice and you're not fully in your head voice. What happens, that mechanism, it doesn't really close that tightly, and that way you're not in either one of those mechanisms all the way. Mixed voices, mothers here. This is not head voice, and it's also not chest voice. It is mixed voice, so it's a version. It can lead into head voice and chest voice, but it's very undefined. And that's why it's great to use, because once you have some repertoire where you have to go way up and you can't quite do it in chest voice anymore, you can actually use mixed register, and that way the break won't be that obvious. The mixed register is not going to have so much of a different sound than the chest voice does. But the head voice, if you just transition from chest into pure head voice, there's a big break and there's a big difference in sound. And you want it to be more evened out, the sound. You don't want to go like, I am singing, no. That's just kind of out of character. It's all of a sudden it sounds like a whole different singer, a whole different style, a whole different voice. So you wanna go from chest voice into mixed voice, and you can't sing much higher that way. So this is a great way to kind of bridge between the registers. The next thing I want to talk about is belting. Belting actually isn't a term that is specifically for singing. All that it means is that you just shout out something loud. But it has become a term in singing just because in more recent music, in the past few decades, it has been used so much. If you ever listen to old songs, like old musical theater songs, they're more on the classical side. They always transitioned into head voice quite early on, especially the female singers. And even the males, they did that a lot. Now, in the past few decades, the singing style has become more prevalent, in which you use the chest voice more and you pull it up and you sing high and loud and you more in the chest register. And belting actually means using your chest voice to go even higher. Now, what happens when you belt? It's a different quality than just mere chest voice, just because there's a lot less air coming through your vocal cords, and the opening between your vocal cords is very, very small. So don't think louder when you belt. Think narrower. Think more laser beam airstream coming through your vocal cords. And that way it's going to sound more like, because of you, instead of because of you. So don't just yell it out. It probably just went in overdrive here. Just more narrow. I talked about this already before, about this laser beam streaming air coming through there. Now there's one more register. I'm not really trained right now to do this, but it's your whistle register. Your whistle register is kind of an extension of your head voice, but it's not really head voice, just because whenever your head voice, when you produce a pitch in your head voice, these membranes of your vocal cords, they vibrate. When you sing whistle register, there's a small area on the edges of your vocal cords that actually vibrate. It's not the full vocal cord anymore. It's just a small area. It's not the whole membrane. It's just a small side area that's on the edge that vibrates. It's kind of like playing a flageolet on the guitar. Whenever you just touch the string very, very lightly and you pluck it, it's going to have a different tone. It's kind of like that. It breaks and it's kind of like an overtone of the actual pitch that normally comes out. And your vocal cords are sort of like strings. And when you have a very condensed airstream, so it needs to be very light and very little air coming through, you're going to have whistle tones. Kind of like this. I'm not trained right now, so I can't really do this. It's very narrow. It's almost like a squeaky sound. It's like, so this is whistle register. Where do you need whistle register? Now, whistle register you don't really need unless you're singing the Queen of the Night. It's kind of in whistle register on the top. But if you're just singing pop or jazz or rock or metal, usually you don't need it unless you want to do it for a cool effect to wow people just a little bit. And you can practice that if you really want to do it, but I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it. Like if you think that is something you really want to do and you got the rest of your voice pretty well down and you're well trained, then you probably can practice it if you think it's something really cool that you want to do. Mariah Carey does it and she's a master. Ariana Grande, she can do it really great. However, always keep in mind, it's not something you have to do. It's just a cool effect. If there's some roughness coming out, it's probably hard. It's very hard to do it. It takes time and it takes a lot of practice to do this. So I hope these explanations helped you a little bit to know what are these registers? What registers are there and how do they work? How do I produce them? I think it's so important to know, especially head voice, chest voice, mixed voice, falsetto. These are the very important things that you need to know in order to also be true to the style, because depending on the style, you're gonna have different voice colors. And for example, classical music, if you're a soprano, you want to sing mainly in head voice. You hardly ever want to use chest voice unless you go really, really low. When you sing a pop ballad, you don't ever really want to use head voice in a way a classical singer does. You want to vary more like a falsetto, more like a mixed voice. And when you're singing musical theater, it depends on what style you're singing in. There's pieces like Phantom of the Opera. They're more classical. And old musicals sometimes, like some Gershwin musical theater shows, or Rodgers and Hammerstein, they are in a different style. And the more modern and the more recent shows like Broadway, 80s, 90s until now, they're more in a pop style. So always pay attention to the style and what the singers do, because every style has their registers and their voice colors. Well, thank you so much for listening today. I would love for you to get in touch with me. If you have any questions, if you need any help, you can actually email me directly at feedback@freyasingingtips.com. I will link it up in the show notes and you can contact me. You can also work with me one-on-one sessions that I'm offering now. You just go to my site, freyasingingtips.com, and there's a tab up on top that says work with me. Just click on that. And also, don't forget, I have the 30-minute, I have an audio program that you can download for free on my site that is a nice workout. It's a vocal warm-up checklist audio program. You can also download the checklist for free that goes with it. That way you make sure you're covering all bases as far as warm-up goes, as far as registers go too. All the registers you need on a daily basis you will cover there. So thank you so much for listening. And of course, I would so love it if you love my show, if you helped me by leaving a review on iTunes. I want more people to see that my show exists. I'm putting a lot of work and heart into this, and it would be the most awesome thing. It would really make my day if you left me a review on iTunes. Thank you, guys. Don't forget, always keep on singing and always keep a song in your heart. Bye.